Internets! Hello, you lovelies! I am just walking out of my number 7 most anticipated of the year, 28 years later, and I am so happy to report that as of now, halfway through the year, it is in my top 10 of the year so far. I will say it is probably the most divisive of the top 10 of the year so far. This movie is so weird, it is so big, it is so bold, it is so violent, it is so absurdist, but most of all, in a film about death, it is so much about life, and that's what I loved about it. But the ways it's about life, which I will not ruin or spoil because they non-spoiler review, are so insane, and the direction this film takes and the choices and leaps and pivots and swings it takes are so much. I don't know if this will be for everyone. If you love Alex Garland, it's probably for you. If you love Danny Boyle, it's probably for you. If you love them both, as I do, it is almost certainly for you. But if those names don't register for you, and if that doesn't make you go, oh my God, yes, this is such an odd film. This is a giant summer zombie apocalypse film starring Aaron Taylor Johnson and Jodie Comer, and it's also one of the crazier, auteur, insane, philosophical art house films I've seen ever released in June. This is going to be my non-spoiler review. If you're new to this page, I cover movies, I cover TV, I cover comic books. Please subscribe to this page. I want to get to 50K when I do. I'm going to do a 50 comment giveaway, so please join me on this journey. Also like, comment, let me know if you're excited for this movie. Let's talk about it non-spoilers. All right, so 28 years later, poster there, and we're going to go over here because this one, I'm going to land right here. Guys, 28 years later, this movie and this poster is only the tip of the iceberg for how insane this gets. We're getting 3 of these. After years and years of waiting, we had 28 days later, years later, 28 weeks later, and I'd say like, what, 2 decades till we got this movie, and now we're getting 3 of these. We get another movie after this directed by Nia DaCosta, and then if those go well, we get a 3rd film. So this is the beginning of an incredible trifecta, and this first one is a full story. Don't worry that it's like a 1 of 3 film, but it does allow this universe to grow. It does allow for world building. If you love 28 Days Later feeling like this ticking clock, this episode of 24, this very intense visual experience, I remember thinking 28 Weeks Later was such a bold swing to allow the growth of the universe. Now we've had 3 decades, and in our reality, we've had like 2 decades for this world to grow out, but we've also had 2 decades of zombie films and familiarity, but Danny Boyle does not let that stifle his vision. This movie is cacophonous. There is so much going on in the edit. There's so much going on in sound. It is downright assaulting on the senses. There are moments of pure brutality to you, the viewer, both visually and auditorially. The way this is edited is much more Trainspotting than Slumdog. I think Slumdog is his mainstream film. I think Trainspotting and the very slept on Trainspotting 2 are Danny Boyle getting to really play to his strengths and play to the madness that is the way he sees filmmaking. This movie makes Trainspotting look tame. This movie uses edits and pivots and honestly, the old 80s action style of showing something and then showing multiple angles of it, they do in a very different way that almost gives you a staccato, almost like a jazz, almost this rhythm of violence, but it's with horror. So it's almost this like strobe light effect you get in a haunted house, but for an edit, and you get to live this moment like you're in the moment. It does play around with mythology of zombies in a way that didn't always work for me. There are a couple zombie choices that I was like, no, but then they use them to make it an absurdist commentary on things that I did love. So the beats I didn't love served the plot enough that I was really okay with them. I give this film overall probably a 4 to 4.5 star. This is in my top of the year, but those moments are really big distractions for me. There were a few moments I was like, am I checking out? Because I'm so happy. And then I'd be like, oh no, we're back in the game. So when I was pulled from it, it was because of a few zombie choices, but every time it made those choices something grandiose in a visual way or a philosophical way or a way that is serving the overall narrative, I got to forgive those beats and problems. So by the time the credits rolled, not only was I elated that I'd just seen one of the most insane films I'd seen this year, one of the most bold films I'd seen this year, but I'd forgiven the moments I didn't love. Now, this film is also full of a lot of very strong and sincere and serious metaphor. It is an Alex Garland film, and it does deal with life. It deals with pondersome concepts of mortality. It does deal with a lot of things that I struggle to even adjust to. I'm terrified of death. Like, as a person, I'm so afraid of mortality, and this film goes, hey, you human being, you're gonna die, and it lets you marinate in that, and then it celebrates and joyously pulps you into a feeling of morose somberness, and then edits joyfully dystopian zombie things. While you're dealing with the consequences of actions, while you're thinking of mortality, it then gives you joy through violence. And then you've got to think about, why do I feel good about this violence? I was just so sad about death. And then it also deals with violence in a way that uses editing in a very beautiful metaphorical way that is really intensely teased in the trailers. I'm not going to give away what I'm talking about, but know that the trailer audio is used so well in the film. Know that it is a factor of the film. Know that that genius bit of trailer art that is its own art piece is incorporated in a very philosophical and introspective way in the film in the first act. And I'm going to break it down briefly before we wrap out of here. First act is kind of a 1-2 punch. The very opening of the film, I was like, I'm watching not what I thought I was going to see. And once we're into the actual movie, I was so in. But the very opening, I was a little jarred by how much I'd looked forward to this. And I was like, oh, please no, Danny Boyle, please no. But then once you're into the movie, that first act is one of the best survivalist zombie stories I've ever seen. One of the best survivalist stories I've ever seen. Aaron Taylor Johnson is so good in this role. There's such a great paternal energy. There's so much passion and power and strength. And then you've got this kid, Alfie. This kid is legit 14 now, which means dude was actually 12 when he was playing a 12-year-old. And he is so an old soul that doesn't read like one of those pretentious kid actors that's like, I'll be in my trailer. Like, he doesn't read like too well spoken, but he reads like an old soul of earnest and sincerity, and they use that as the film develops. And what this kid brings is so much gravitas that you're like, wait, Aaron Taylor Johnson's the lead, right? No, it's this kid, Alfie. So that's the first act. Once we get into the second act, we have Jodie Comer getting to do so much of what she does best. I think this woman is so strong, so captivating. I loved her in Bike Riders. What she's able to bring from a feminine strength standpoint, what she's able to bring as an intelligent woman that is so capable, but in this film struggling with something and going through moments of weakness. There's never weakness in her. There's weakness in her situation. And the strength Jodie Comer brings, juxtaposed with the earnestness of this kid, makes this second act so riveting beyond the zombies. Zombies are the third leads of this film. They're like back there. They're the setting, but the movie gets to be a human story. Then you get to the third act. Third act's crazy. The third act takes some turns that I can't even describe to you if I wanted to, and they're huge spoilers. So I would recommend you lovelies go see this film before you get spoiled. Ralph Fiennes is absolutely at the height of his powers here. Ralph Fiennes, he's in one of my favorite comedies of all time, Grand Budapest Hotel. He is in my favorite comedy of all time, In Bruges, but he's also frickin' Voldemort. Here he is somehow playing with all that. The charm, the charisma, the sneer, the smile, but the intelligence and the poise, and he's some of the only levity in the film. Like, there's few moments of laughter. They come from this man and the kid Alfie a couple times, but the third act, you've white-knuckled this film for so long that when you get to ponder existence and life and the experience, that it settles you in a really weird way, and then you still get more violence that makes you feel like, why am I suddenly happy, and what did this movie just do to me, for 3 very different acts and arguably 6 very different movies. So I would say this film is, like I said, 4 to 4.5 out of 5 stars. It is one of my top 10 of the year. It was my number 7 most anticipated of the year. I'm gonna make a top 10 best of 2025's first half this week because I'm seeing F1 very soon, and that was my last must-watch film. Now I will have seen all my must-watches for the first half, and it'll be fun to kind of compare most anticipated, number 7, to my favorites of the year so far. Then at the end of the year, we'll break down the whole thing. So please hit that subscription bell if you want to see any of that. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of 28 Years Later if you've seen it, what you thought of this review if you haven't. Please like, please press buttons. YouTube needs those for me to, algorithm, all that stuff. Much love. Subscribe to this page. What a movie. Danny Boyle, thank you. Alex Garland, thank you for always wrecking my psyche. I worry about my mental health every time I experience your films. Thanks.